There's so many to choose from.
Welcome to Fatman on Batman. I'm Kevin Smith. All right, let's dispense with the fucking bullshit. Back in the Fat Cave, man. Very exciting. More discussion with my good friend, comic book fucking legend, Marvel man, who at one point drew Batman, and that's what brings him into the Fat Cave. And then, as we learned last week, all he wanted to do was draw Batman, and they shut the door on him, so he went and built the Marvel Empire. Joe Quesada is back with us in the Fat Cave, man. Now, say hi real quick.
Hey, man. What's going on?
I'm just going to tell you right now, the show is Fat Man on Batman, but this week we are Fat Man on Cap, man, because I just saw Captain America 2, The Winter Soldier. Joe has been telling me to go see Captain America 2, The Winter Soldier since he first saw it and said, this is the finest Marvel movie. We're at our best. Like, trust me. I was like, Captain America 2, dude? Like, I like Captain America, but I don't know if 2 can possibly be. For me, the standard bearers of our Iron Man, the first Iron Man, I think is a fucking flawless movie. I've watched that movie so many times now, and I'm not watching for flaws, but there are no fucking flaws. That movie is fucking, it's one of those movies that you just feel everyone was like, I got something to prove. Yeah. I got something to prove. I got something to prove. And everyone loved the material. Everyone brought an A game. Not a single person fucking phones it in on that movie. And because of it, you have a classic, a timeless classic, and the Marvel Cinematic Universe is born.
Yeah.
Avengers is a movie. I love the Avengers, man. And it's an utterly watchable film, but, I'm not taking, I don't want to raise anyone else to take away from anyone else, but you have to realize the difficulty of Iron Man. You're starting from scratch and you're hitting the ground with not Spider-Man, Marvel's most well-known character, or the X-Men, who weren't mainstream famous until those movies broke. They were in the cartoons in a big bad way, but like my mom didn't know fucking Wolverine. Now my mom knows what snicked means, and not because of fucking Mallrats. It's just entered the mainstream, the lexicon. When they announced Iron Man, I was like, wow, I don't give a shit about Iron Man. I don't care about Tony Stark. Never fucking gave a shit. Then they announced Robert Downey Jr. I was like, oh, well, that's fucking interesting. And then you heard about how like Favreau was fighting for Robert Downey Jr. Someone wanted to go younger, and fucking they had screen test Robert Downey Jr. It's got a mythos to it. Mm-hmm. It's Sisyphus pushing a boulder uphill, man. Like, that's beginning something. Then you got a bunch of other Marvel movies. By the time you hit the Avengers, man, all your backstory has been fucking told. So you get to jump into Act 2. You don't have to be like, there was a man who came from a place called Asgard, which could be another planet or another dimension. We're not quite sure. Magic and science mixers. They've done that. You already fucking made that movie. So by the time you hit Avengers, the heavy lifting is done. All Joss Whedon and friends have to do is be fucking entertaining as fuck and give you a great story. And fuck if that team isn't capable of doing that. So the Avengers, wonderful movie, but is assisted by everything that happens from Iron Man up until that point. It's built on the very solid shoulders of what has come before. Captain America 2, The Winter Soldier, the least likely for me to be, this is the next big Marvel move. And this is how I feel about this movie. This is by far, I feel like it stands shoulder to shoulder with Iron Man. If I see it a few more times, I bet you it might actually climb a notch or two above. Now, it's to say it's the best Marvel movie is one thing. I think this is a fucking this could go on the top 100 films as far as I'm concerned. Like, this is like All the President's Men with action in it. It is so insanely fucking well done. Who fucking did this? And we got Joe Quesada in the chair to talk about. We'll talk about the movie. We'll talk about the source material. We'll talk about everything. It's going to be Fat Man on Cat Man from here on out, folks. So if you're looking for the cape and cowl, not this week, man. The only cow is the fucking cow with wings on the side, motherfucker. I am not. I'll tell you right up. Same way I felt about Iron Man. Like, I don't give a fuck about Iron Man. I didn't care about Captain America. It's boring as fuck to me and shit. Sometimes in the comics, he's done well. Frank Miller, I thought, did him well once or twice. And when he put him in the Daredevil, remember, with U.S. Agent and shit like that. But to me, I'm not. It wasn't U.S. Agent. What was the other? What was that? What was the dude? Nuke.
Yes.
Well done. Fucking. Yeah. Thank God the Marvel man's here.
But you know, Kev, isn't that the case with so many characters? I mean, look, you know, Batman went through a really, really, really big dry spell, right? Where he became really, really boring and really, really campy until Frank came around and reinvented him, and didn't really invent him, just reinvented, but really sort of brought him back to his roots, right? Mm-hmm. Made him interesting again. all these characters go through the same thing. I mean, we can say the thing about Superman, right? Superman gets really, really boring, but all he needs is somebody to come in and go, wow, I got the idea. I got the spark. I got the juice, right? And all of a sudden you'll be sitting here talking about, wow, man, that the greatest character of all time. I didn't care about him, but now I do.
Excellent.
So
point.
you just gotta find that thing. And I think, when Ed Brubaker took over Captain America, for the longest time, we were trying to find a way to make Captain America a really compelling and interesting character. And I think it starts there with the roots in the comics. So,
this is under your editorship at this point.
Yeah.
So let's go back there, because the movie don't happen without the comic. Because
I think what you see here with Captain America and Winter Soldier, I think a lot of this, it really comes from Ed Brubaker, Steve Epting, Tom Brevoort, who was editing the book at the time, and Ed's vision for Captain America, where Ed really turned it into sort of this Bourne Identity, espionage, Tom Clancy-esque kind of thriller kind of world that Cap lived in. I mean, those are Ed's roots. He's got those noir roots, those Tom Clancy roots.
He also worked on Batman. We're going to try to get him into the Fat Cave.
And he also worked on Batman.
Gotham Central, right?
Yeah. And Ed is a phenomenal writer. And the beauty about Ed's writing is it reminds me a lot of Garth Ennis writing, right? Where when you start reading, sometimes you read a writer's work and you're very cognizant of like, oh yeah, I could sense the writer in the work. I know who the writer is. When Garth writes something, sometimes I lose track. I'm just in the story, and I especially when he and Steve Dillon are working together in those wonderful old Preacher books and when they were at their height and Punisher. You lose track. You're just in the story. You don't know where the writer is, where the artist is. You're just in it, and you don't hear voices or see the art. It's just one piece. Same thing with Ed. You don't hear Ed's voice. It's a story, man. And when Ed is at his best, that's what you sort of get. And he created this new world for Cap, and he created this Captain America that was so gosh darn compelling, where, it's a tough character to write. It's a guy that wears the flag, right? And so
he's kind of like the Superman problem. I mean, he doesn't have,
it very much is,
but he doesn't have the same kind of like the problem with Superman is the big blue schoolboy, but his ultimate sin is that, he's like Jesus. You can only beat Jesus with nails. You can only beat fucking Superman with kryptonite. Captain America was always a little more compelling because it's like, he used to be like you and me, the super soldier searing him up, but he ain't fucking unkillable, as we found out at one point.
Right, but I would argue also that he suffers from the exact same things because he wears the American flag, and when you and in some cases that's even tougher because that flag means something different to everyone, right?
Excellent.
So my dad wasn't born in this country, right? But my dad came to this country and fought in a war. So when he sees that flag, or when he saw that flag, it means something completely different to him than it means to me as a firstborn, in this country who didn't fight in a war. And, so I had different, I have different feelings when I see that flag than when he saw it, than when my grandfather saw it. Everybody has a different feeling about that flag.
Just here.
And that's just here, right?
Yeah.
And then you go abroad, right? So Cap suffers from that, right? So you have, you walk that line of like, how do you write this character? How do you write this character without being jingoist, too jingoistic, too political?
Can't always be like the American way. And just like over at DC, Superman, at one point, they made a big deal about like, he ain't going to say the American way anymore.
Right. And then you're dealing in a red hot, political climate, right? There's right and there's left and there's very little middle. And
then Fox News is like, they're taking Superman and raping him and he's no longer for America.
And that's the beauty of what Ed did. I mean, Ed, every once in a while, he ran into one political snag once because there were some signs in the background of one particular scene that it wasn't even his issue, it was a letterer's issue. But outside of that, he did an amazing job with Cap, where he didn't make it about politics. He made it about Cap the man and what was in the heart of Steve Rogers. Which is really what the story is about, right? And that's where the movie goes. And the first movie talks about, I think there's a great line in the first movie where Dr. Erskine says, so you want to kill Nazis or something like that, right? And Steve says, no, I don't want to kill anybody. I just don't like bullets,
yes,
right?
Which was that was the highlight moment of that movie.
And that was it, right? And there are subtleties in Captain America 2 that I think, and you'll see these as you watch the second and the third time, things that are added to Steve that, again, to me, he's not very different than Clark Kent or Superman. But there are things that we do with the character that that make him so endearing, but at the same time, not a pussy, right? But there's again, spoiler warnings, guys. If you haven't seen the movie, stop this right now, okay? Because we're going to.
And if you haven't seen the movie, fucking shame on you. Look, if you're listening to Fatman on Batman, chances are you've seen Captain America. Maybe like me, you didn't see it first week, you saw it second week.
Yeah.
If you haven't seen it yet, we're going to get deep into this movie, fucking balls deep. So make sure you've seen it and then come back and listen. And if you haven't seen it, shame on you. It's comic movie's finest hour. If Dark Knight was like the Godfather 2 of comic book movies, Captain America may very well, to me, and this means a lot because I love All the President's Men, is All the President's Men of comic book movies added to The Hunt for Red October. And those are two of the most watchable fucking movies I've ever seen in my life. Yeah. And it feels like when I watched that movie in the cinema yesterday, I felt like, my God, they found a way to make a popcorn movie that made me feel smart, not dumb while watching it. Yeah. I mean, this sounds stupid to say. I didn't see some of the plot twists coming.
Yeah.
And, it's like I read comics and I'm familiar with, but there's some shit I didn't. But what were you going to say?
Well, there's a very small moment. And to me, I think it's seminal to the character, right? Where Steve and Natasha, the Black Widow, have escaped, out of the mall where the strike team was looking for them and they've stolen a car. And it's Steve who's hot-wired the car. And Natasha says, I can't, where did Captain America learn how to steal a car? And he talks about, he goes,
Nazi Germany.
I learned how to hot-wire a car. And he says to her, feed off the dash.
And he goes, we're borrowing. He goes, by the way, we're borrowing the car. So feed off the dash.
Right? And I'm like, right there, it's like, this is an honorable guy. Even though he's stolen this car, it's for the greater good, but hey, get your feet off the dash. Right?
This is somebody else's property.
Yeah. And then she turns to, and they have that, she's asked that question. She's like, I can tell by the way you're going to answer, you don't answer. And she says that thing, because they just kissed, right?
There's a moment on the escalator where to hide their identities, they kiss. She's like, public displays of affection make people nervous. Kiss me. So she kisses and the guy's looking for her, look away.
And she's like, is that not the first kiss you've had since, 1940 something? And he, stammers a little bit. He's like, no, he's like, I'm 90. I'm not dead. Yeah. And at that moment, how do you not fall in love with this guy? Right.
Yes.
And that's the other trick about Cap, right? Is that, it's very, he's man at a time. And we struggled with this. We talked about this a lot at the Marvel Creative Committee. You want to make sure that while he is man at a time, you don't want to make him a young 30 old fogey where like, oh, what's this computer thing here in front of it? He's still, he has an iPhone. He knows how to handle it, but he's catching up, right? So there's that moment where he's got
notebook moment is fantastic.
Right? He gets tech. Right. He's not an idiot. But at the same time, and he's not completely out of touch, but you can use those moments to get a little bit of humor out of it.
Yes.
The thing about his barbershop quartet being dead and all
the
those
War
things.
Games joke was, I thought, hysterical. Yeah. She's like, shall we play a game? Yeah. And she's like, it's a movie that was she cuts her off. He's like, I've seen that.
I've seen it. So it's having fun with that, but at the same time, not being a slave to it. So there are ways around it. And I think those are all things that were really set up beautifully in Ed's run and in the way that Ed, Steve Epting, they designed and created the Winter Soldier and just all.
Let's take it to there. So you bring in Ed. And you go, hey man, I want you to take over Cap, or did he come to you going, I want to take over Cap? And he had been at Gotham Central at this point. He was somebody poached from DC.
Admittedly, I'm trying to remember if Ed wanted to write Cap, if we asked Ed to write Cap. Ed probably wanted to write Cap. I'm having trouble remembering which came first.
How deep into his Cap run is Winter Soldier?
Was that?
How deep into his Cap run is Winter Soldier?
Again, I'd have to look it up. I have a terrible memory for these things. The only thing I do remember was that there was one point we were having a discussion, and I challenged the room because every once in a while we'll be in these writers' rooms and we'll challenge each other, and I said, I think that we can bring Bucky back from the dead, and there were a couple of older Marvel editors who went gasp, And
for those unfamiliar with the Marvel U or Marvel Comics universe, because a lot of people are like, I know Marvel from the movies now, but in comics, there was this, the old saying, perhaps, two people that are never going to come back from the dead. It was, there's been many variations, but it used to be Gwen Stacy and Bucky. then of course, but there are some people that definitely can't come back, like Peter's parents.
No, it was Gwen Stacy. There was mostly Uncle Ben. Really was, but I never.
There's that one. It's like you can't do a single story.
It was
without
never
Uncle Ben.
Bucky. That's the whole thing. That's why I challenged the room, because I said, Bucky was never, the death of Bucky to me was never interesting. Like you can't bring Uncle Ben back from the dead.
Otherwise, Spider-Man doesn't be Spider-Man.
It's like bringing Bruce Wayne's parents back from the dead.
I'm happy now.
Yeah. You take away the essence of the character and essence for being, the superhero. So, but to me, the death of Bucky was not instrumental in Captain America becoming Captain America. It's just a casualty of war. It's a sidekick that died. So why not bring him back? And so it astonished me that over all these years of publishing, that nobody decided to ever bring Bucky back. Somehow or other, over that time, it became, a sacred cow that no one wanted to touch. And we started talking about it. And, at first I think Ed was just like, wait, I don't know. Can we bring that back? And as we started talking about it, I think it also dawned on Ed that there's no reason that this doesn't affect Cap in any way, shape, or form.
How did he die in the comics? Do you remember?
In the comics, it was, there was that missile launch. Was it,
it's the same missile launch that where Cap gets frozen?
Yes.
And that's where he and Bucky got separate. So Bucky made it with him to the end of the line.
Yes, basically. And Cap gets frozen. I think it was Zemo that launched it, or one of those Nazis launched it. So that was it. It was just in trying to save Bucky that he froze, but so really nothing changes, right? If you bring Bucky back from the dead. So then
I think, remember in the 90s, was it Fool Killer, or there was some book that was tangentially tied to Bucky had been this guy and he grew up to be this guy, or the second Bucky. I can't remember. Yeah. Walter would remember, but it's not, you're right. It wasn't all that fucking sacred a cow.
Yeah.
But nobody had done it because they were like, well, it's a charming part of Cap's story. And also kids' sidekicks, with the exception of Robin, were kind of by the wayside.
Yeah. But then from that point on, man, it was all Ed. It was all Ed and Steve Epting. Ed took that idea and ran with it and created this idea of the Winter Soldier and this Manchurian Candidate, and this guy that's been around forever and just, goes into deep freeze and is unfrozen and then sent off to do these assassinations, and then just gets put back into deep freeze and disappears. And Steve created the look, and then we were off and running, and then the big surprise that it was Bucky. And literally what you see on the screen today, and that's basically what Ed and Steve created. I mean, from the look to the temperament to the everything about the character is really what was created. And I think it's a testimonial to what these guys did in the comics.
Ed is one of the scientists in the movie. I saw in the credits.
Yeah.
I don't know if the other one was the other guy, was it? No.
I don't think Steve's in it. No.
So okay, what about what's his name? Zolar. Was that in the comics? Is the guy who's like, I have downloaded to myself.
Aronzola?
Yeah.
Yeah. He's
Did they do that in the comics as well?
He's a classic Marvel.
I know, but did he do the, I downloaded my consciousness into, that's captured my fucking imagination.
Yeah. There's a version, it's a different version of that. Zola is sort of like this big robotic, he's a big robot who's got a television head.
Right.
He lives in
But in Ed's run, did they retcon it to a gigantic fucking War Games room where?
No, not that I can remember. No, that's something that was.
Love that piece, man. It was such a oh yeah, I guess that would have been in 1970. It's acres and acres of fucking data style storage. Okay, so it's very popular in the comics. When they did the Winter Soldier story.
Oh yeah, the Winter Soldier story went through the roof. It did really, really well. And let me add, when Ed took over Captain America, Captain America was just a comic that did okay.
Right.
It did so. And it really, really started to pick up. And then it really started to pick up even more, after Civil War. And then, of course, spoiler warning, the death of Captain America. And then, having Bucky, or Winter Soldier take over as Captain America.
So he was Cap while Cap was dead.
Yeah. And the interesting thing again is that Ed did such a, there was a huge fear that, well, now we're not going to have Cap in the book. And it's going to be Winter Soldier. Well, sales are going to plummet, but Ed wrote the hell out of that book. And sales maintained and actually went up. And I remember, like a seminal moment. I think it was either New York Con or San Diego Con, or I might have done this at both conventions. After Bucky had been Captain America for a while, and I did a cup of Joe, and I said to the audience, "Okay, folks, I mean, because of course everybody was like, well, you got to bring Captain America back in 2 or 3 months, and it had been a while now, and he hadn't been back." And I said, "Okay, so let me ask a question to the audience: how many people want to see Steve Rogers back? 50%. How many people want to see Bucky remain? 50. It was 50-50 down the middle, and I was like, wow." That is pretty amazing. And just showed you how well Ed wrote those characters, with the fact that people fell in love with Bucky Cap.
And you got to think about a lot of people, for a lot of kids, Bucky Cap was their first Cap and will always be their first Cap. Yeah. And maybe they're in the minority. For everyone else, like, hey, it's Steve Rogers for me. But it's like, I don't know, when I started reading comics, Bucky had taken over as Cap. So that will always be my Cap. Yeah. Like, there are cats that talk about when Morrison wrote Dick as Batman. Yeah. They're like, oh my God, that's my Batman. Like, I wish it would go back to that kind of thing. All right. So the comic is successful. When the cinematic universe, all right. So there's the Marvel Creative Committee. Mm-hmm. There's Marvel Films, should we call it? Or what do they call it?
Marvel Studios.
Marvel Studios.
Yes.
So when Marvel Studios starts building the cinematic universe, and they know, they're like, we got to get to Avengers, so we got to set up every character. Who writes Captain America, the First Avenger?
Writing team of Marcus and McFeely.
McFeely.
Yeah, they write
adorable name.
Yes. These guys are phenomenal.
Did they write the second one?
They wrote the second one.
If these guys don't win the Academy Award, or at least a nomination this year for Best Original Screenplay, fuck that organization. I'm not even just like, that's not like a comic book fan talking. That's a guy who's watched movies for 43 years. And you know what they can hear? There's no reason on earth, okay? Maybe some old school writers like, I'll never nominate a goddamn comic book movie. This is based on previous material, so it's adapted. There's no fucking reason on earth this screenplay, unless something better comes out this year, shouldn't win Best Adapted Screenplay.
Noah's Ark?
Bullshit. I got a movie coming out this year. Even if they were like, look, Tusk could be on that list. You got to pick either you or Tusk or Cap. I would be like, give it to fucking Cap. That movie, it works so fucking astoundingly well.
These guys are so amazingly talented. I had the pleasure of sitting in the room with them during the writing of Cap 1. Uh-huh. I sat with them for a day, working on some ideas for the Red Skull. And they're two young guys. They're really, really smart. They work really, really well together. They understand the Marvel DNA through and through. Mm. And I will tell you, as a member of the creative committee, we get to see, the initial briefs for the movie when they come through, then, the initial outlines, and then every draft of the screenplay. From the outline to the very first rough draft of this screenplay. We could have filmed that first draft of the screenplay. It was that tight already. It was out of every draft that we've gotten, of every screenplay we've ever gotten, that to me was like, I was like, wow, this, sure, there's a nip and there's a tug, and there's some notes, but like, wow, I
see the whole picture right here.
This is going to be an amazing movie. And we've been talking amongst ourselves internally at Marvel, obviously, because, we're incredibly secretive. But, I was just telling people this is phenomenal. Mm-hmm. It is an amazing, amazing screenplay that these two guys wrote. And they just nailed it with Steve, with the Winter Soldier, and the whole universe of it all, in a lot of ways, it's it really is sort of a mini Avengers movie. I mean, when you've got, the introduction of the Falcon, Winter Soldier, Cap, Fury, Natasha.
It felt like a comic book.
Agent 13. I mean,
but in a good way. Like, I don't want people thinking that's dismissive. It felt like as I watched that movie, I had the distinct impression and feelings that I used to have while reading a comic book, knee deep in the run of my love of comic books, where I'm like, I know so much about these worlds that you can whip a character in and I'm ready to fucking go. And if you're introducing a new character, you're going to give me a bunch of information anyway. It felt like that. Yeah. It was the closest experience I've ever had in a movie theater to reading a comic. And I know someone will find some way to make that dismissive, but I don't mean that dismissive. Like, that's the sheer joy. Like, they never get it right. There's always some fucking part that's broken. This was not. This was like, you could take anybody, the last holdout critic who's like, comic books are for kids, you fucking child. You could take them to this movie and be like, come on, dude. Like, you know, I know, like, when I showed you the Joker picture with Dark Knight, that was compelling evidence, but this puts the nail in your fucking coffin of your argument. This is based on a comic book. This is all straight out the fucking page. Like, and it's that adult and grown up, and a kid could fucking enjoy this, and his grandfather could fucking enjoy it. And it's not this like bullshit Wizard of Oz family entertainment. It's a little complex, man. And it's about some shit.
It is. Yeah, I mean, look, deep down in its core, it's about stuff that's going on right now, right?
Bingo.
Right. But I also think, look, we're going to have to talk about the Russo brothers too, because, you know,
that was my next question.
Right, these guys,
who are they? What did they do? You imagine I would have done homework before this, but where did they come from?
You know, listen, you know, these guys, you know, you've seen Community, right? You know, they
did Community?
They did Community. I mean, they've also, you know, they've directed before, but these guys are, they're brilliant. I mean, and they're
it's a beautiful looking movie.
It's a beautiful looking movie. And I got
well shot, excellent composition. Those opening scenes of him fucking running around Washington.
Well, I want to talk about that because I looked at, I'm like, man, if I was going to teach a class on whether it's film or just storytelling, those, I'd have to time it. I don't know if it's the first 2 minutes, 3 minutes of that movie, but you want to talk about, an introduction where you immediately fall in love with your three heroes in your cast within the first however many minutes of a movie that is, and feel patriotic and everything. I mean, you open up on that wide shot of Washington, right? At dawn, the reflecting pool with that slight symphonic Tom Clancy patriotic music, and that lone guy jogging, and then on your left, right? And you're like, what the hell is that, right? And you're feeling that swelling in your chest. And then the second on your left makes you giggle a little bit. You're like, okay, what's going on here? And then again, and then you meet these two guys and you're immediately like, there's a
ebony and ivory.
There's a bromance there, right?
All you want to see is 96 movies about Cap and Falcon together.
And then the widow pulls up in that car and she's like, what's up, boys?
Yeah.
And you're like, let's party.
For all those middle Americans who are like, I'm uncomfortable with this bromance, they immediately like, look, there's a girl, don't worry about it. And everybody's okay, then let's go have an adventure. Yeah. It's a wonderful opening to the movie.
And it's
you're right. You love every one of those characters.
And you know what's funny? My daughter, a couple of days ago asked me, she said, Dad, can you buy me the soundtrack to Cap? I'm like, really? I mean, she loves soundtracks, but she's really selective. I'm like, really, Cap? She's like, yeah, Cap. And I've never listened to just a soundtrack alone. And not because I want your dollars, Kev, but do yourself a favor. Download
it. Yeah. It wasn't Sylvester was the first one. Who did this one? You don't know the people who scored? I noticed, I'm watching the credits.
Wallace, what's his first name? I'm going to draw a blank.
It was excellent score. Look, everybody, there's no weak links or spots in this fucking movie. Everybody brought an A game to it. After that charming opening, man, they throw you into an adventure right the fuck away. Boom, you're on that jet. We've all seen it from the trailer at this point where he's having the conversation. Well, first there's a mission op. They're about going after some pirates. Then, he has that back and forth with Black Widow about, you should call the girl in accounting. He's like, can't, busy, and just jumps out the plane. And then the guy goes, did he just jump out without a parachute? And the guy's like, yes, he did.
Yes, he did.
Right away, you're like, oh my God, you're fucking glassy eyed. You're like, oh, I'm in. I'm fucking out at the edge of my seat. You watch him descend. Bam, into the ocean, then boom up the chain. And then you watch a dazzling display, straight out of comic book. He just beats the fuck one by one, quietly, stealth, across the deck of the boat and goes into full Cap action.
Yeah. And the thing that's cool about all that action is that none of it looks CGI rubbery. It all, it's all real world. And you could tell this is a guy who's got skills and has some superpowers and he's running pretty fucking fast.
Yes.
But it doesn't look out of the ordinary, bizarre, like, okay, I can see that I can see the seams here. You know what I mean?
Right.
It's just, again, I'm, we're all really, really, really proud of the movie and what everybody at Marvel Studios did, to put this thing together.
This entire opening action sequence, I mean, I can't remember if they did the title at that point or if this was all pre-title. They do big main on end credits with a great title design, but wisely, they get you right into the fucking picture and whatnot. So once they have their opening adventure, you're already hooked. You're like, man, this fucking right on. This is a way to start a goddamn picture. You immediately like Steve Rogers more than you've liked him in any incarnation. Like the first movie, which he was lovely in that movie. When he says, I just hate bullies. And in Avengers, I think he was great too. But this time around, you're like, fuck, Cap is charming.
Yeah.
And you're only 5, maybe 8 minutes into the picture. They got you already. Let me tell you, when they fucking put in the claws and like take you with them, they'll never let you go. And you will fucking love this movie till the end of time. And it makes sense now that you're like, oh, the guys that wrote the first one wrote this one. Cause there's so many fucking tie-ins. Like Captain America, the big complaint a lot of people seem to have was like, it was 80% of a movie and then fucking all of a sudden it was all set up for Avengers and shit. They didn't have enough time to just keep going. They felt like the montage of his action adventure and shit like that was tight. It felt like there was a shit ton of movie to pack into that, and it was kind of preparatory and stuff. But these guys answered and touched on everything that was left onto almost everything, which is going to, I don't believe the Red Skull's gone. Sooner or later it'll come back. But they touched on so many fucking threads from the first movie. And not in the way of somebody who's like, I will dutifully honor the shit people liked in the first movie now that I am writing the second, even though I didn't write the first. This was done in a way with love and affection. The same parent of that first picture wrote this picture. It was almost like you have 2 kids. In the first one, you're like, all right, fuck, I know. I learned from all my mistakes in the second one. Now I can raise that one into a better human being. And a bunch of first kids out there are like, fuck you. A bunch of middle kids know what I'm talking about. So there's this moment in the movie where I don't care. You got to be a fucking robot, Cylon. You got to be Hitler himself, Baron von Strucker. Pick a fucking name. Cap goes to see Agent Carter.
Yes.
Now, it played by what's her name? I don't know. I'm bad with this, but she was great. She was in the first movie.
Yes.
Is it her in makeup in the second picture? So he goes to see her, and now this is a notion. I'm sitting there watching the scene going, I hadn't thought of that. I guess maybe she might still be alive. Like I always assumed at the end of Captain America, the First Avenger, he goes into the ice, she's upset and shit, and then he wakes up and it's, the present. And then in the Avengers, there was no real like Sergeant Carter or Agent Carter follow-up. Agent Carter follow-up. So suddenly you're struck with the notion of like, she didn't die. And they give you a little backstory in as much as she married, had kids, she had a whole life, and she talks to him about like, I had a life. You were right.
And by the way, that's all like CGI on her too.
Yeah, I figured as much.
Yeah. Because she's a stunning old lady.
Yeah. I mean, she is. As you're looking at her, she's got those young ass eyes where you're just like, she ain't that old. If there's gray grass on the field, I'm still playing. So she is adorable. But so there she is having a conversation. And I remember feeling like, oh man, like I hadn't thought of that. Like she might still be alive. And I said, that's cute that he comes to see her, or maybe she's going to die in this scene or something like that. But he talks to her and they have this, it sums up or ties up anything from the fucking first picture. And it's just a great scene in and of itself. Then they fucking flip the switch and they make it magic and they make it cinema and they make it a scene that you'll remember to the end of your life because it's so powerful. And that's and this is a scene without any fucking super heroics and no special effects whatsoever. Well, special effects in as much as they made her look old. They let her have Alzheimer's.
Yep.
Oh my God. I'm going to cry just thinking about it. And all of a sudden she sees him again, even though he's been sitting there with her. And she fucking freaks and she's like, Steve, you're back. And she can't believe, oh my God, where have you been? And blah, blah, blah. And you see it like he's been through this before. Like any person with Alzheimer's, she has moments of clarity and then back into the loop. And he fucking, she's just like, I can't believe you're here. And he's like, tied into the first movie. He says like that line about like, you know, I couldn't not give my best girl a dance. Oh my God. I'm bawling in the theater, dude. I look over at Jason Mewes and he's not very comfortable with emotions beyond like, my dick is hard and this is funny. But he's sitting there glassy eyed too. Ralph Garman, he went with us as well. He's crying. We're only 15 minutes into the movie and right away they're giving you some devastating character stuff. Beautiful. Yeah. Such a great scene. And again, I was watching the scene and I was going, this is interesting. I hadn't thought she might still be alive. And they might have this kind of relationship where they chit chat and even more pain or drama for Cap to carry around. Like this is the woman he was kind of into before he got frozen and shit. But flipping that switch and fucking making it like an Alzheimer's moment. Oh, yeah. It's just so much the poignancy that like Captain America has to carry that around. He's like, I missed her whole life and moments I get to talk to her and then she gone.
It's funny because, you know, the first time I saw that scene with Haley was, you know, it was without the CGI, you know, so it's just
really, so it's just her in bed.
It's just her with the gray wig and she's looking absolutely, I mean, she's
gorgeous,
breathtakingly beautiful. Okay. I mean, there are pretty women and then there's just breathtakingly beautiful women, right? And she's a sweetheart to boot. And she's sitting there, you know, in the scene and, you know, in the hospital clothes and the gray wig and she's doing the old lady voice. And I'm sitting going, I don't know how this is going to work
without the CG.
I'm like, I know it's good. It
looks like kids doing a school play.
Yeah.
Ebenezer, you're being visited by old ghosts.
And her performance is wonderful. And I'm like, okay, I'm trying to imagine old lady, like, you know, give grandma a sponge bath kind of thing, you know? But then they did the CGI and it's just like, yeah, you're right. I mean, it's such a beautiful moment because, you know, you read it in the script and you're like, wow, you know, this is gonna destroy people.
Gut punch. You had from that moment. Look, I was in. Like, what a hell of an opening it was. I was like, these motherfuckers know how to start a picture. But when that happens, I'm like, you can take me fucking anywhere. Yeah. Like there is no disappointing me after this point because you just did something that I never expected to see in a movie like this. Yeah. That was so real. Like I was talking to Mewes afterwards and he was like, I even like the moments where like they weren't fighting and shit. And he's like, where'd they get goofy? I was like, what do you mean goofy? He's like, oh, they talk about stuff. And I'm like, the human moments? I was like, that's what makes it compelling, dude. It's like, you can't just watch them be gods for 2 hours straight. What makes that watchable is that, you know, when fucking shit's not going on, they're like, hey man, did you go out with that girl? Like, they're normal people. Like, that's not goofy. That's human and stuff. He's like, well, I'm saying I even like the human moments. Right. I was like, yes. So, all right. So right then and there, I'm like, you got me for the rest of this fucking ride. Let me tell you the shit that like little things that just popped for me. The mere mention of Stephen Strange got my dick hard. Yeah, they threw it away where they're just like, you know, this fucking algorithm searches for people like Bruce Banner or Stephen Strange.
Got just the little Eye of Agamotto.
Where was that? Where?
No, I'm just saying your little Eye of Agamotto.
I thought you were saying there was in the background somewhere. No. That means that it's coming.
I cannot say. I cannot deny.
That's a cool fucking role, man. I'm curious who winds up being Stephen Strange. And that's such a good dude. Think about it. Marvel can do the supernatural comic book world. You know what I'm saying? Like right now, Marvel's done terrestrial and they've been the first to do, they're the first to do technological with Iron Man suit. Yeah. They're the first to do a team movie with the Avengers. They're the first to go to, they're not the first to go to space, but it looks like they'll be the first to successfully conquer the space comic book movie. Green Lantern fell apart, but it looks like Guardians is going to be fucking
We're going to give it a shot. You know what I mean?
And then next will be fucking the comic book supernatural world. That's where Stephen Strange gets you, man. Then he gets into Mephisto.
Neither confirm nor deny.
Oh, you piece of shit. So anyway, that reference was awesome. The On Your Left was great, especially when it ties up fucking later on. I don't want it. Well, they already fucking know the spoilers. This is a very spoilerific episode. That was the best portrayal and best performance of the character of Nick Fury of any of the movies. Like Nick Fury, rather than just the guy who comes in and says something cute or the guy who's like,
well, you got to see Nick really kick some ass
and be a human being. Like he actually I mean, I don't know how else to say this and this is not disparaging any other directors or anything like that, but it feels like the Russo brothers were like, that was great, Sam. Let's do another one just for the fuck of it. Like, it seems like a lot of times people are like, hey, it's Sam Jackson, man. So they let him do one take and fucking move on. And I honestly, as I watched that movie, I felt like he was fucking acting. Like, he was literally like being asked to kind of give, and did. It was a compelling performance. It wasn't just right on. Sam Jackson's back playing Nick Fury. It's just like, look at all the fucking shades that he brought to Nick Fury this time. And again, I'm sure Sam Jackson would be like, look, when you got a script, that's what you can do and stuff. I thought he did such a great job.
I just loved him shooting the machine gun.
Right? Seeing him do shit and finding out backstory, and he fucking shows you his eye. Yeah. There were so many fucking moments in the movie where you're like, holy shit, it's iconic. Yeah. There were, seeing the senator from, what's his name from fucking Iron Man 2 when Gary Shandling comes back, even that. But this is a big fucking spoiler, man. And we're jumping around, but
the thing about Gary Shandling is that he shows up on screen. And it doesn't matter what audience you see it with, whether you're in a private screening or in general audience. He doesn't have to say a word.
People titter.
People just start laughing. Yeah. He just shows up and people start laughing. He doesn't have to say a word, you know. And then he opens his mouth and people start laughing hysterically.
This is one of the great gifts, and certainly not the greatest gift, but one of the top 100 gifts of Captain America 2: The Winter Soldier. Never imagined in my lifetime that I would ever, and this is a big spoiler, motherfucker, so don't get mad when you hear this. Cover your ears if you haven't seen the movie yet. Never did I ever think I would ever hear Robert Redford utter the immortal fucking, this is how we knew the geeks have won and taken over the world, dude. When Robert Redford says, "Hail Hydra."
Right.
We've won, dude. That was amazing. I was sitting in the theater. I laughed out loud. I cackled, but not derisively, just because I was like, holy shit. It's our world now. Not my world. It's fucking Marvel's world. But in a world where you get like one of the most famous actors of all time to say something that kids have been saying out loud and reading comic book page for years, and he gives it the exact gravitas that requires, not playing it archly. This fucking drove me nuts. I loved it. I loved the return of Zolar, as we said before. I loved the fact that it was in New Jersey, of course, fucking rocked. But just the whole concept of it, that scene, the fact that he was back, another tie-in from like the previous flick where, you know, at the end of that flick, it was just like, Cap went off, got frozen, and they didn't really track the rest. Suddenly you got a bit of backstory to that. And I loved his fucking like, the missiles are coming. It is better this way, Captain. We are both out of time. It was such a comic book scene. Dude.
It was.
And and again, like some people be like, of course it was fucking a man talking to a computer with a brain. Johnny Depp's in a movie called Transcendence. The fucking same thing. It's about to open next week. Like, that's not just a comic book concept anymore. Right. But it was a uniquely comic book scene because there is Captain America and there is the Black Widow and there they are facing Zolar, the master monster computer, filling a whole fucking room. Loved it. Absolutely fucking loved it. Cap's shield got so much fucking screen time in this movie.
It did, right? We got some good shield action, right?
And that's what you want, because it's just like, how many things define Captain America? The shield's like in the top fucking 5. And it did so fucking much. He used it in a variety of ways, not just to stop fucking bullets. The elevator scene, man, is tits. Come on. Like him, and you've seen it in the trailer where he's in the, you haven't seen the movie yet, where he's just like, before we get started.
Right.
Oh, you're right, dude. Like when you said Clancy at the beginning, I was like, fuck, you're right. It's Clancy. It's like, well, it's not Clancy. It's fucking Winter Soldier, but it had all the elements of a fucking spy thriller and it just happened to have a mask on it from time to time.
Yeah.
Speaking of which, the fucking exhibit that they walk through, the Captain America exhibit you talked about last time. I couldn't help but think about this. I'm watching the movie. I was like, Quesada talked about the live Marvel exhibit that people walk through and shit. Will they do shit like that where you will see that exhibit as you walk through?
You talk about
this like Marvel live experience.
Oh, there's the Feld live action show. Yeah, that they'll probably be like a meet and greet with characters. I don't know if it'll be exactly that.
Right.
But I think there are things in the works. I don't know what's been made public yet, but there are probably things in the works where eventually you'll see stuff.
I remember reading something online where there was just like the Marvel experience where it's like you walk through. But
that's another one. I don't know if it's quite exactly the same as this, but we've got a bunch of things in the works that are sort of exhibit like. experiences. So
there were moments in the movie where some people would be like, little boy wearing a cap shirt. You know, some cats would be like, come on, it's a fucking commercial. Fuck you. If you're in a Captain America exhibit, you're wearing a Captain America t-shirt. I love the fact that like there is a fandom for the heroes in the Marvel universe, just like in the comics. Yeah. So they showed a kid and fucking he sees Steve Rogers walking through his own exhibit and he fucking gives him the and moves on. Come on, dude. That made me glass up. The other thing that made me glass up was, him not fighting the Winter Soldier at the end. Well, but they all know. Him not fighting Bucky. He's like, I'm not going to fight you. You're my friend. He's like, you're my mission. He just punches him, fucking bam, bam, bam in the face. And
he
he's
could have
like,
broken Bucky's neck.
Yeah. Oh, shit, son.
I'm sorry. I had to get it in there.
Fighting words.
No, actually, you know
Not
what?
everyone can be a Man of Steel. Some people
you know
are.
what? That actually, that was something that somebody just pointed me to an article online about that.
What about?
About the difference, between
the two pictures?
The two pictures, yeah. And,
vast difference.
And how,
Can't judge though, unfortunately, because one is starts it, one's a sequel.
Yeah. And how, that there was a difference in the way that Cap handled his arch nemesis in this
That made me tear up though, where he was just like, I'm your friend until the end of the line. Come on.
But again, that's also part of that's out of the Brubaker run, where the Winter Soldier, rescues Cap out of the water and stuff, and then sort of walks off into the ether kind of thing.
And the helicarriers, is that something from Marvel Studios world?
Yeah, that's the Marvel Studios world.
They brought that in. That's to make it more cinematic.
Oh yeah, that was dude, that was breathtaking.
It really was, and it was neat because
what's better than one helicarrier?
A fuck ton, a metric fuck ton of helicarrier takeoff, the water, splitting the lake, and what is it? Whatever that body of water is, not the Potomac because that would be a river, right? But where the Triskelion is based in Washington, that's where and seeing the Triskelion, dude, that was fucking tits.
Isn't that great?
And then if they've made it this far. And then knowing their whole mission is like, we got to bring down the Triskelion, the impregnable building.
Yeah, we just built it.
But it was spy versus spy.
Yeah.
Robert Redford was great. What's his name? Anthony Mackie. I watch a whole, it's just smart because now I'll watch a whole fucking Falcon movie.
Yeah. And
they can take him, put him in a movie with someone else and introduce that character. And all they need is these, what are the two writers' names? McFeely and
Marcus and McFeely.
Marcus McFeely. You put those dudes in charge of it, man. Those dudes should write every script. Seriously, that script was so fucking well written.
I love their stuff. I really do. I really do. They've written some other stuff for us too that I can't discuss here, but they are immensely talented. They really, really are. And Anthony Mackie in the movie was. Again, I just think
Project Falcon.
The Exo Falcon.
Yes.
And again,
awesome.
I just don't think if you're a fan, of the Marvel stuff,
Even
exactly.
when he said his name, dude, when he was just like Sam, I was like, I was reading comics in the 70s, kids. Like Captain Falcon, that was like watching Falcon carry Captain America at one point where he's like, I need a lift.
Yeah.
I saw shit like that in a comic book when I was a child. You never imagined in a million years you would see that on a big fucking screen. Yeah. Captain America and Falcon team up. And there it is. And you're just like, oh my God, give me 96 movies like this. I'll watch so many adventures.
For the Marvel fan who knows he's going to be the Falcon and knows all about, what's coming and stuff, you get it. But I think for the layperson who doesn't understand, and then when he says, I never said I was a pilot.
Yeah.
And then, and they get the suit and he puts on the wings and it's just like, whoa. Okay,
and the wings were badass.
Yeah,
the way they functioned. I love the way they just folded up when he didn't want, he would shut him down and then drop and then pop him again. Like when he's getting chased by the missiles.
Yeah.
But the character is so well drawn. Even moments where he's he looks at him and he goes, I do what he does, just slower. And then they're on your left moment in the hospital. Insta friendship, like a bromance, and that's and they stick together the whole fucking picture. And then Black Widow, probably the most effective use of Black Widow in any of the Marvel movies. And again, in raising something up, it doesn't shit on something else.
Yeah.
And as time goes on, it just gets easier to perfect things.
Yep.
But best Black Widow, if she don't get a fucking solo movie off of this picture, somebody's not manning the ship because clearly she can be compelling enough.
Yeah.
In a movie that's not just her running from the Hulk, you know what I'm saying? Or tricking Loki or something like that. like she was integral to the plot. Like for a while you were sitting there going, oh fuck it, I gotta turn her. And like, how can they turn her? She's an Avenger and shit like that. But they do such a great game of spy versus spy and who's fucking over who. They did some I mean, if you've made it this far, you know. The fact that S.H.I.E.L.D. and fucking Hydra are mixed, that was brilliant. Like, I loved that. I was sitting there going, all this time. Like, when he said to him, like, I think it was Black Widow, was just like, you look pretty chipper for a guy who just realized he wasted his whole life. His whole life was a waste or whatever. Because it's true, he gave his life to fucking stop Hydra, and fucking they wound up within.
They've been there all along.
Oh. So, I don't watch S.H.I.E.L.D., but it must affect. I'm in a creative period right now. I ain't watching shit except Mad Men and Walking Dead. But you know, my stories. But I'm in a creative period where I'm trying to output a lot of shit, so I don't sit around watching all that shit. But I do know people like Ralph Garman watches it and digs it. He was just like, boy, they ended the season really strong. Patton Oswalt, it was a big fan. I saw him on his Twitter feed as well. But how does this affect the fucking show? Because, I mean, again, spoilers, you've been listening this far, like, Captain America 2 undoes, like, what you think of as kind of the spine of the Marvel Universe, like S.H.I.E.L.D. We're looking after the country.
I mean, that's what makes the S.H.I.E.L.D. show probably the most unique show on television, is the fact that, you know, like the comics, right? I mean, you look at the comic universe, right? Every week we have a new batch of comics that come out, right? So, you know, anybody who reads Marvel comics, reads comics in general, any universe that you're into, but in particular the Marvel universe, which is what we're talking about here, it is a living, breathing organism of its own, right? Because every week new artists and writers are creating new stories that feed the beast, that keep the universe alive and change it in ways subtle and major, depending on, you know, what the week or what the stories are. The same can be said for the cinematic universe. The cinematic universe is a living, breathing entity of its own. And every time a new movie comes out, it changes. And every time, and S.H.I.E.L.D., the TV show, lives within that organism.
And it's the first adjunct to the movies.
Yeah.
Like they haven't done anything outside the film. So now they got this TV show satellite.
So anytime something happens in the movies, it alters things within the living, breathing organism that is the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and it alters our TV show. And by the way, the TV show will alter things in the movies as well. So
and that character Sitwell, he was on the TV show.
Yeah, he was on the TV show, you know, just prior to Captain America. And there's a line in the TV show where they say, Sitwell, you're needed on the Lemurian Star, and he takes off and he
goes to the movie.
He goes to the movie, and he's on the ship. So, you know, there's a lot of cross referencing back and forth. So, you know, we've known this is happening for a long time. At least the writers and producers have known this is happening for a very long time. So, you know, we've been building towards it. So it's the kind of thing where, we know it's coming and we know it's going to alter our show. And we just prepare for it. And I think at the end of the day, it makes our show that much more, of an interesting show to write and to create.
But for me, I'm sitting there watching this going, oh, this is year one of S.H.I.E.L.D.
Yeah.
I know they started this movie either before or around the same time they started S.H.I.E.L.D. So as they start the TV show S.H.I.E.L.D., they're so they know by the end of the season, they're like, everything we're predicated upon is going to go away.
We knew the actors didn't.
Really?
Yeah.
So what's his name? Clark Gregg was just like, is that his name? The guy who plays,
Clark had to, as we got closer, Clark started to have his suspicions because he knew some people, but most of the performers had no idea because, you know, we're trying, we want to make sure that we get the proper reactions as we do the show. So they didn't have any idea of what was going on. And, you know, only those of us in the know, as we were creating the show, we knew exactly by the time the season was going to be over, there was going to be no S.H.I.E.L.D. So we were fully prepared for how this stuff was going to lay out. How exactly all those things would shake out at the end, we were still sort of working it out and seeing how the cast would interplay with each other and things like that. So a few things were still going to be tweaked by the time we got there, but we knew what the end game was.
So you can still continue the show because it's not called S.H.I.E.L.D., it's called Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. or?
Oh no, we're still going to continue the show. Yeah.
As Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.
Yeah. No, it's continuing. We have a plan. I can't tell you exactly what that plan is, but
it doesn't include a title change.
As of right now, no.
Fucking evasive people.
As of right now, no. But I can tell you that it makes our show, I think it makes our show that much more interesting.
Right.
Because of the playground that we now are left with, which is Hydra has been S.H.I.E.L.D. all along. I mean, if you watched last week's episode of S.H.I.E.L.D., you would have seen it was literally, I think it was our best episode of the season, but last week's episode was to me the best episode we've done all season.
I saw that echoed online quite a bit by people that watch the show regularly and are fans, and people that watch sporadically.
Because it literally was one twist after the next. After you have no idea what was coming, and by the time you get to the end of the episode, you're like, what just happened? You know
Question.
what I mean?
Did something happen in the show to, what is his name? Clark Gregg's character, the agent.
Agent Coulson.
Did something happen? Why wasn't he in Captain America? Not even like a brief kind of appearance, because they had Kobe Smolder's character popped up.
Yeah. Maria Hill.
Yeah. But nothing. Did something happen in the show that prevented?
No.
Just no need for him.
No, he just wasn't. Yeah, there were enough characters in Captain America. No,
it was dense, but not in a way where it was just like, I don't know what's going on. You know what I'm saying? I mean, there's clearly one villain.
Yeah.
One villain using another villain. Fucking Robert Redford's scene with his fucking maid was awesome, dude.
Yeah.
Like, you don't expect to see that in a Marvel movie. That was so weird. He's just like, oh, I wish he'd knocked. Yeah. Like, oh, real good.
Yeah.
Winter Soldier looked cool. Arm looked cool.
Yeah.
Whole appearance looked cool. That's what he looks like in the books as well.
Yeah.
The mask and the eye thing.
And I got to tell you, man,
that arm looked badass, dude. It reminded me of like.
It's funny. It's like, you meet Sebastian. You meet Sebastian Stan? He's he's a great guy, and you see him on screen, and he looks ginormous. I mean, he looks like Arnold Schwarzenegger, and you meet him, and he's a regular guy, and it's like, man, he's one of those guys, like, the camera just eats him up. I mean, it just loves him, man. It's like, it gets into those eyes, and you're like, whoa.
Same with Chris, though.
Chris, of course.
We haven't given him enough love. Chris he is the heart and soul of the picture. And he pulls it off.
He is Steve Rogers.
He really is. And it's weird because right before the movie came out, he's like, I don't want to direct so much. I don't want to act so much anymore as I do want to direct and stuff. But it's weird with this. He's always been a really I think a really cool actor. And he's found a way to like go into roles where he's pretty. He's fucking preternaturally pretty. Yeah. It's tough for a guy that pretty to disappear and shit. And I think he's been able to do that from time to time, place to place in some roles I've seen him in outside the Marvel universe. But this fucking role here, man, is just like, dude, don't go anywhere. Yeah. Like, you got shit to do. Yeah. Look what you got in you, man. You just get some more material like this. Fucking go crazy.
Yeah. I mean, how do you, I mean, I mean, yeah, when you talk about, a guy that's that pretty, it's tough to be that pretty and yet be John Wayne.
Yeah.
He's John Wayne.
He is. Good call. Good call. Yeah.
It's,
better than John Wayne though.
Yeah. But I mean, it's just,
but that big.
Yeah. He commands it. He is, when as Captain America, I mean, he just embraces the role, and
he commands your respect, but also your affection. That's the thing that like John Wayne would command your affection when he was being charming and shit like that. Yeah. But more often you were like, I'm scared of him because he looks like my grandfather. Right. But you don't get that with Chris Evans.
He's gonna send me out to the backyard and pick out my own switch, beat my own ass. No, when Chris says, hey, feet off the dash. Yeah. It's like, all right. I understand. Yeah, there's a level of respect that he just, and again, it's that moment with Peggy, where he sits there and it's just, he does there, what it is also? It's, cause I was imagining that moment where in the beginning of the movie with him and Anthony and they talk about the jogging and Anthony says, so it's going to be like that. And he's like, it's going to be like that, and they have that one little report and like that is not an easy scene to play. And that's not an easy moment to get between those two guys. Because it felt so natural and almost ad-libbed. And it's just, he just nails it, so now you have this guy again from the 1940s who's, very much a man of the time. But a second ago, he was just, writing down,
one more thing onto the list, which includes like, look up Steve Jobs, look up this, look up that. He brought, what was it? It's like, Marvin Gaye's Trouble Man.
Trouble Man. So yeah, again, I just, not enough can be said, Chris and the job he does, you know, in this movie, you know, aside from the fact that it's just, you know, pretty.
Oh, he is eye candy. He's super polite. I was on the Tonight Show with him once, and he was like very nice guy, real nice guy.
You know, speaking of Tonight Show, so I want to talk to you a little bit about something. We're going to get off Captain America for a second.
How can we do? Let me see if there's anything left to do.
No, I want to stop for a second because you know what? Because you and I, you know, the last podcast we do, we haven't seen each other in a while. You know, we see each other at premieres and stuff like that, but we haven't hung out in a while because, you know, we have lives.
Yeah. Children, fucking businesses. You're running an empire, dude. Yeah. I'm running, and people go like, he's got a podcasting empire, which means he does it for free. Joe's running an actual empire, which produces comic books, TV, movies, shit like that.
You're good at this stuff. I gotta tell you, you're, you know, and
talking.
No, but you're good at this, you know, and I gotta tell you, when I heard, you know, I love Colbert. Okay. I love Stephen Colbert, and he's a friend, and he's great at what he does. When I heard Letterman was retiring, so I was like, man, why don't they give you a gig?
You're crazy.
I'm serious, man. I mean,
this is, I'm best dude with no visual.
but let me tell you, come on, seriously, man. I got
a show. I got a late night show.
No, but I'm telling you, these big time networks, man, they want to get a youthful audience. They want to attract.
They made the absolute right choice. Stephen Colbert.
Listen, no, I understand. Look,
if there was a list, let's say there's no 100 names on it. I'm not, I was maybe 101.
I'm not saying that they didn't make the right choice with Steven. Right. Steven's brilliant. Okay. But I was saying there's got to be a show that follows Steve.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And they got to groom somebody.
What's his name? Fucking Craig Ferguson.
They got to groom somebody for someday to follow Steven somewhere down the road.
My good friends at AMC, they're the only ones who are like, hey man, he seems to like TV. Give him a late night show. So we're doing a Hollywood Babylon pilot, but that's not so much like, hey, let's sit down and chit chat. See, the beauty of this format right here, we can do this for fucking hours, and people can pause it, walk away, but they won't. They'll listen and shit like that. Yeah. It's not a commitment of you got to put your eyes on it, and there's no sponsors really, so you don't have to be like, I want 10 minutes and we're out and we got to sell something.
I want to see you behind a desk. I'd love to see. I would
love to see me behind a desk too, because I'll hide my gut. But this hides my gut even better. I can just live in their ears.
The Kevin Smith Show.
One day, man. Yeah. Well, there is. Every one of these podcasts is comic book men kind of counts. If Babylon works, that'll never be the Kevin Smith Show, but I'll be on that show on the regular. That's kind of like, you know, us making fun of.
You would kick all their asses. I'm telling you, man. A younger demographic.
I'll tell you, this is my dream right here. If somebody was like, what do you want to do? Right. What would be your ideal talk show? They're like, you could do any talk show you want.
You know what? We film a late night talk show from your couch.
Bingo.
Just do it. If people just come over your house.
Like Tom Green it.
Yeah. Basically.
It would be this though. It would be like, you call it Fatman on Batman, but it's just all about comic books. Right. You can watch ABC, NBC, CBS, watch the same fucking movie stars jump from couch to couch like prostitutes and fucking sell their wares. Ain't nowhere you're turning on where you see fucking Joe Quesada sit there telling about like, so, okay, when I was drawing Azrael, but there's a whole audience for that.
Right.
Like Comic Book Men proves that. And there's fucking a million people who are like, tell me about 90s comics. Cause that's what we talk about. We don't talk about what's going on right now as much as we talked about like, oh, this is the shit we loved. And there's a whole audience for that. So I believe someplace like Sci-Fi or somewhere like I'm dreaming of sooner or later, someone's going to do the Comic Book Network and fucking that will be my sweet spot. But that would be the move where why not watch, like, I'd rather watch you talk about fucking comic books for an hour than watch like Denzel Washington do the same fucking 3 stories that he's got to do on the other network and shit like that. I've seen those cats tell their stories.
Well, I just want to say, get that out of the way, because I just think, you know, you're very, very good at this. And listen, the assless chaps
always helps.
They help, man.
That's how I got Quesada over here. I was like, look what I'm wearing. I stuck up my tush.
That sweet white tush, man.
Nothing but white. And when you say white, it's never seen the sun.
I was going to say that. It was in Barbados, 1993 was the last time those cheeks saw the sun.
Not even then. All right. So when something like this happens where you guys are like, we're loading fucking Winter Soldier into the cinematic chamber, do you reflect it in the comic book universe? You're like, hey, let's bring him out again. Did he ever go? I mean, he was Cap, but spoilers. Steve Rogers has come back as Cap. What happened?
I mean, every movie's different. I mean, it depends on, it depends. Sometimes,
like, did you put out Falcon books recently?
I don't know what's come out. I mean, to be honest with you, I'm not as connected to the publishing world these days as I used to. But what we'll make sure is that we have we have enough of a backlist now in the trade division that we want to make sure that there's trades in the bookstores for people who are looking for Falcon.
So I leave Captain America 2 and I'm like, holy shit, man, that Falcon's badass. And I go into fucking the one bookstore left on the planet and I'm like, hey man, do you have any? And they're like, oh, we got this trade paperback of the best of Falcon from Marvel in the 70s.
That would be the perfect world, and also, as we design our cartoon shows and things like that, we want to make sure that we are putting a focus on the Falcon, and Falcon is, we know the Falcon's going to be in the Cap movies, so Falcon's going to be in the Avengers, and Falcon's going to be on, in some of these live shows that we're doing. We want to make sure that we have a focus on the Falcon. Is it the Anthony and Mackie version of the Falcon? No, probably not. Probably more the colorful,
with the plumage,
with the red and the gold and the white costume kind of thing. But we want to make sure that we put, focus on those characters that we got, some money vested in. So, we do, that's the nice thing about Marvel is that, we are still, even though we are part of the bigger, larger Disney organization, we're offered a significant amount of autonomy. And with that autonomy means that we've always been a small company. We run very, very lean and mean and very, very close to the bone. So a lot of us wear a lot of hats. But what it does is it makes communication a lot easier amongst all of us. So being synergistic, I know I hate that word, but it is a word that
it's unavoidable in a world of business. And it's unavoidable in a world where it's like your company is owned by a company.
Yeah.
That it has to, and you have to coexist with this other company who technically from time to time, if dates are not moved around, you might have to compete with their product and shit like that. So synergy, very important in business.
Right. So synergy amongst ourselves, is probably, would I would assume be easier than in a larger company just because, it's easier for us to communicate together because it's a smaller group of us. So, we know what's happening in movies. We know what's happening in the cartoons. We know what's happening in publishing. And, it's usually the same group of people that are the heads of all these divisions and are always constantly talking, So when I leave here, I'm literally getting in my car and I'm going over to Marvel Studios to discuss.
Where is Marvel Studios out here?
They're in the Disney lot. We're
Where had they prior to the Disney purchase? Were they at Paramount or something?
No, we used to be in Manhattan Beach.
Is that where it was?
Yeah, and we were in Manhattan Beach even after the Disney purchase. We just moved recently.
Over recently.
Yeah, I think we lost our lease or something, or we finished our lease there, or whatever. And
they should give you that dwarfs building, and they should take off those fucking dwarfs and put up fucking goddamn Iron Man, all the Avengers. Just that's what's holding that company up now. It ain't the Seven Dwarfs anymore.
But yeah, so we're Marvel Studios is there.
So you're going over there to do what? What's the secret business today?
I can't tell you that.
Come on, motherfucker, give me some dirt.
Tell you that. No.
Let me ask you this, man. In the world of synergy,
yeah,
is it possible one day we see a Pixar version of a Marvel character movie?
A Pixar version? I don't know.
Or are they like, look, we do our shit.
There's a Disney animated movie coming out in November called Big Hero 6, which is based on sort of a little known Marvel property called Big Hero 6. So that's happening.
The fuck out of here, man. See, that's smart. That's like Guardians of the Galaxy where they're like, man, take this shit, turn it into something. Then you'll impress me. It's one thing to be like, here's fucking the Avengers. We all know that's going to work. But, and we know, God damn it, one day, perhaps the prodigal son gets to come home and Marvel will have Spider-Man back and whatnot. But until then, they're like, let's mine the entire Marvel universe. So rather than go like, all right, man, who's popular? Like they're going like, hey, let's try Guardians of the Galaxy. Yeah. And then what is it called? Big Hero 6?
It's called Big Hero 6. Yeah. Disney Animation, is doing this. This is their thing. They've taken this again. It's the actual, it's a team called Big Hero 6. There were only maybe 6 comics published.
Was it set in the Marvel U?
Set in the movie is, well, I don't want to give away too much, right. but the comics were set in the Marvel U. So it's a movie that comes out in November. And again, I don't want to say too much because it's really not, you know why? Because it's not my project right. to promote or leak or anything like that. Right. So I want to leave that, I want to leave that to those guys.
Smart.
But
I didn't even know that existed. That's badass.
Yeah. Well, it's been announced. So that's happening, but a Pixar version of a Marvel movie there, as far as I know, there is nothing like that in the works, but, Pixar does pretty good on their own. You know what I mean?
I know, but still.
Those guys are pretty amazing.
I hear they're doing The Incredibles, like a sequel to The Incredibles now.
That's what I heard. That's going to be pretty great, you know.
But that's like, it feels like a bit of like, well, fucking, these superheroes are doing very well. Let's do that again. We have superheroes as well.
No, they listen, you know, John,
do you meet with John Lasseter? And
yeah.
Is he a nice guy?
John's a great guy. John is a fantastic guy. And, you know, I get to work with him a little bit on the Big Hero 6 project when they do their screenings. And,
you hear that fucking kids? This is a dude fucking that me and him worked on Daredevil a couple of years ago. Now he's fucking rubbing elbows with a dude who's like one of the richest motherfuckers on the planet, runs the whole entire Disney company.
I tell you, John is just, I mean, you know, he's an incredibly charming and I mean, he loves what he does. He's no different than you or I. He just, you know, he loves animation. He loves Disney. He loves Pixar. I mean, that's where his roots are. I mean, he has a passion for that stuff, the same way that I have a passion for the Marvel stuff and for the comic stuff. And we meet in the middle. I mean, and, you know, he asks me questions about my world. I ask him questions about his world. And, we have a blast together. I mean, you know, so we have a lot of common ground because at the end of the day, it's all about story. You know, he's a pretty fascinating guy, you know, and, the best is going through the Walt Disney Park with him though, because sometimes we have these big Walt Disney creative retreat kind of things. And then, after hours, you know, we just sort of hang out and John sort of knows his way through the parks and, you know, we'll end up at, you know, one of these sort of, Disney restaurant or whatever. And he'll know the piano player and, you know, there'll be karaoke night. And so it'll be crazy, but John's a lot of fun. He's a really, really good guy. And just obviously incredibly smart and incredibly talented. I mean, you know, just what they did with Frozen this year was crazy.
Massive.
So yeah, so that's one of those things where I sit there and I'm like, damn, I'm hanging out with John Lasseter. I'm hanging out with Ed Camel. What happened here?
How do I aggregate to this?
Yeah, it's like, wait a minute, I'm that schmuck that grew up in Jackson Heights, Queens, you know, playing stickball on the streets. How did I get
Drawn got you there, man. You know, Batman got you there, kind of. Just so we can tie it into the show.
Batman, yeah, it's all about Batman.
Batman, of course. Yeah. Here, let's do this. So, also while you're out here, you'll probably be working on, did we talk about it last time, the Netflix shows?
A little bit, yeah.
So while you're out here, is that moving forward? And is that Marvel Studios or Marvel?
That's Marvel Television.
Marvel Television, yeah, completely. So that's the same people that do
which
Shield.
Is run by Jeff Loeb. What was that?
Same people that do Shield.
Yeah.
Are going to be doing Daredevil and then, Power Man and Iron Fist and Jessica Jones.
Right.
Is that the three of them?
That's four of them.
And
Power Man,
they count
Iron Fist.
But Power Man and Iron Fist got their own thing.
They're two separate. Power Man and Iron Fist.
Oh, really? So they're not in one show? It's just like Power Man has a show, Iron Fist has a show?
Yep. Jessica Jones and...
I'm going to come, dude. Are you kidding me? That's 4 separate comic book shows.
You're wearing those asses.
I know, because they're just going to go free. Yeah. It's unique. It's wonderful. It's just like, you know, instead of, like right now, there's one big comic book show that ties into the cinematic universe, you know, on a major network, but, you know, they dollop that shit out once a week and then they go away for a while. Yeah. This is going to be like, here you go, all your episodes, sit down, binge, and watch fucking Daredevil from end to end. How far away are they from starting to shoot, and where are they shooting, and what?
We're shooting in New York.
Really?
That's the fantastic thing about it is that we're shooting at home. We're shooting where these characters belong. These stories take place in Hell's Kitchen, and you know, so while there really isn't technically the Hell's Kitchen that
was it called Clinton now?
It's Clinton, Chelsea. There's a bunch of different names for that whole area. It changes depending on, you know, when you're buying a property there and how much they want to charge you. But we are, you know, we're going to be filming in areas of Brooklyn and Long Island City, that still look like the old Hell's Kitchen, and what doesn't look like that we'll probably, I guess, build inside of a studio. But, it thrills me, man, to no end to have these things happening in New York. That alone, I think, is going to give it an incredible vibe. And, you know, once again, it's like Marvel taking ownership of New York, saying, this is where we're from, man. This is our universe. This is where it started. And I think Daredevil, who is, I always say next to Spider-Man, you know, there's no character that's more synonymous with New York than Daredevil.
That's true. I guess Tony Stark, California, West Coast Avengers.
Yeah, I mean, and right now Daredevil, I think, is in San Francisco and stuff, and there are characters back and forth, but really, Daredevil was born in Hell's Kitchen, battling Jack Murdoch, the whole thing. It smells of dark alley, vomit, and piss, right?
Right.
So that's pretty fantastic. And the fact that, you're going to get all these episodes and you can binge watch them however you want, and then binge watch them again. And then that there will be some interconnectivity, much like the movies. They will exist within the cinematic universe again. So this is all the same world as S.H.I.E.L.D. and the Avengers. But God. It is, but when you
glad I lived to see this.
I hope I live to see it too. I always say I'm one hamburger away from not seeing any of it. But much like you talked about, like, Marvel, we've told stories of the technological superhero and sort of the mythical superhero and Thor and all those kind of things. Although these are superhero stories, this is different now. This is the street level. This is the street level noir side of the Marvel universe, something that you haven't really, really seen in any of our movies. And probably more ground level than I think you've seen. I mean, this is not like us doing Batman, Dark Knight or any of that stuff. This is very Marvel doing street level superheroes. So hopefully, the same way that Captain America, just did the political thriller espionage kind of movie. That's what we're really trying to do with the Netflix shows. The scripts are coming in. They're pretty fantastic. They're really emotional. They're very, very original. It's, but at the same time, it is Daredevil. It is Matt Murdock. We will eventually, hopefully start casting really, really soon. But I'm very, very excited about it.
How long before is it an umbrella called the Defenders, or that's what they get to eventually?
That's what they get to eventually, so, that is the goal. The goal is to get to the Defenders.
Some big crossover event.
Yeah. And see where that takes us. You know what I mean? So
with Daredevil, here's a question.
Yeah.
Who gets Kingpin?
What do you mean, who gets
Daredevil or Spider-Man universe? Because Daredevil had him in a movie.
Yeah. I am not going to say who the villain is in our story.
Yeah, motherfucker.
I'm not going to say. I'm going to tell you.
All I'm saying is I will take this beard and what little hair I have left off and be your Wilson Fisk. Let's talk about the distinguished competition.
Yeah.
Because we've sucked so much marvelous cock. You've referenced very briefly before, the Captain America to Man of Steel. As a guy who, did you talk anywhere about Man of Steel and Cup of Joe? Or Joe does a column called Cup of Joe, and he does,
I don't do the column anymore.
What is it?
I don't do a column anymore.
You stopped doing Cup of Joe?
The column, yeah. I just had no time.
Right.
I have zero time. I mean, all I do now I do a Cup of Joe panel in New York and a Cup of Joe panel in
so twice a year
in San Diego, and now I'll do a couple of speaking engagements here and there, but I don't have time to, every once in a while I'll post on Twitter and I'll post on Facebook, but days of writing a weekly column. And this is probably the most speaking I've done in a while, man, is with you.
Sit down and chit chat. He's a fucking mover and shaker.
I love you, man.
What did you think of Man of Steel?
Listen, this is tough because, they are the competition.
But take off competitive hat. Like, cause look, let's just put this out there and say Marvel, if there is a race, Marvel's not only winning, they won it and they've gone back in time and won it a couple times over.
As a comic book fan, I wanted to love that movie so much. I wanted to love it so much. And I didn't love it so much. And, again, there are, little things here and there, that you could pick at and things like that. But I just think at the end of the day, Zod was the hero of the movie to me.
Explain. Compelling. Explain.
He wanted to save his race and Superman didn't let him. Superman.
I'm processing this.
Well,
oh my
Superman-
God. Yeah. What?
Superman said to him when Zod was tearing our planet to pieces. Correct me if I'm wrong. I mean, Superman had sort of
In his blood, it's spoilers. Is all the codex was liquefied or turned into a space powder that entered his blood somehow before they shot him off to Earth. And so within all of his cells, not just his blood, but in all of his cells in his body contained all the genetic coding for all of Krypton's future. So all they would have to do to extract that, they'd have to extract that shit from the cells, and then they could rebuild Krypton with that birthing chamber from what was essentially the Fortress
They could simply bring back a planet, a race of people that is now extinct.
Except for Superman and all the Kryptonian prisoners. That was it. So there's like 10 Kryptonians left.
Right.
But they can make a shit ton more thanks to Superman's body containing the codex, which clearly was the plan that Jor-El had in mind for Superman.
Right. And Zod in this particular incarnation to me struck me as not necessarily an evil man, but a man of, he had his orders, he had a mission, he was a zealot of sort, but he was a zealot who
I was born. My purpose
he
was to ensure the Kryptonian. Yeah. He was all about, like, he wasn't like, I've got an evil way of doing things. I want to control things. He was like, I'm programmed to ensure the race of Krypton.
Right. Now, again, correct me if I'm wrong. He didn't say, I'm going to rebuild Krypton and then come back and destroy this little planet, right? He didn't say anything like that, right? So all I want is I just want to rebuild this planet, right? And the only reason I'm blowing everything to bits here is because you've got what I want and you're not giving it to me. So please give me my people and I'll leave.
He didn't say that though, but when he told Superman, he's like, I'll build it. Superman goes, what happens to the people? And he's just like, you can't build a new world unless you're building on the foundation of the old. And that's why he was standing with all those skulls. So he made Superman make a choice. It's either going to be Krypton or Earth, essentially. But your point is, keep going.
When Superman said Krypton had its chance.
That bummed you out?
And I'm like, you just fucking kill him, Zod.
Traitor!
I'm serious. I was just like, I got kind of bummed. I really got bummed.
Well, what's the way out? If he's like, all right, take your fucking space people and go make, well, first Zod was like very clear about, hey man, we're going to pull Krypton out your ass, whether you're alive or dead, even if we have to kill you to do it. But where does one go with that? You know what I'm saying? Even if he's like, look, I'll let you keep the fucking birthing chamber and shit, and I'll give you a liter of my blood to go make, like fucking 4,000 Kryptonians. They're all going to come back and fucking kill the shit out of Earth. So it's like he's got.
Are they?
Well, based on the Zod that he was giving us, he's just like,
I don't know.
Skull breaking.
Again,
looked like a metal album at one point.
Yeah, I don't know. Again, it's just.
But you raised an excellent point.
I mean, it's just I guess I look at these movies. I look at a lot of movies now, with a much more analytical eye, including our own, and when we have our meetings about our own screenplays, we bring up these issues, it's like, why are we writing ourselves into these corners to begin with? Mm-hmm. And, is it a logical corner? And I see these things and I'm like, you didn't necessarily, you probably could have written a way around it, a better solution. You could have had a better solution if you had written a better problem. So I see things like that and I'm like, man. And so it was one of some things in the movie that I just ended up just feeling disappointed in, Whereas, I of course I didn't get that feeling with the Batman flicks. I mean, I love the Batman flicks. Yeah.
Even though the last Batman, there was a bunch to be like, what the fuck? But still, there was more good than bad.
But it didn't matter because I was entertained, right? You know what I mean? And at the end of the day, again, you could, again, watch the Marvel movies. Sure, you could pick at a bunch of different things, but did you walk out and feel like you got your money's worth? You had your popcorn, you had a good time, and that's what you want, right? So. Obviously, the second Batman movie is just a beautiful
masterpiece.
Right? Yeah. But I so want, and I was really in, and maybe that was it. I was just like in the mood to watch that Superman movie. Really, really. And afterwards I was just angry. You know, so you know, I'm hoping that the next one, you know,
that's what I felt like when I watched this one. I didn't have as many problems. Like Ralph, my friend, hated it. And we did an episode where he just fucking pissed in his mouth. But I was like, I got the feeling from this, the very distinct feeling that it was Batman Begins. Like, remember Batman Begins it's very well made and shit and totally watchable. But the last Batmans we had was Tim Burton's. Yeah. Which they weren't like incredibly self-aware like the Adam West 66 Batman, but they weren't like, they were shot on sets more than anything else. Chris Nolan took the movie, put it in the real world, and played Batman Begins like a cop who happens to wear tights and a cowl. Right. So there was this period of adjustment of like, oh, I guess fucking we're not joking around anymore. Now it's very earnest and blah, blah, blah. But it was all set up for the genius that was to come. You don't get to Dark Knight unless you do some setup. Right. So I for Man of Steel, I give it a pass because I'm like, maybe it's their Batman Begins and maybe that allows them to hit the ground running with the second one and go fucking great. But Captain America, first one I thought was a great movie too. All of a sudden it ended. We're like, oh shit. Because, you got to make him a man at a time before you get going and whatnot. But 2, like, it's not even like 2 blows it out the fucking water, but it does. And not in a shitty way. It's just, it's an insanely well, it's part of the same thing. All the heavy lifting and the setup has been done. So, doesn't mean whoever comes in next has an easy job of doing it, because sometimes you set the table for people and they still shit on it and ruin the whole fucking meal. But the people that you guys have set the table for, Joss and then the Russo brothers? Yeah. Like both, those are 2 examples where the table was set and they fucking like gave us a delicious goddamn meal and threw a few more place settings down and improved the dinner in a way we didn't know.
But, listen, you can't discount. I mean, let's take Joss for an example. I mean, when people talk about what Marvel did, right? The method of introducing, each one of the characters individually before doing the bigger movie. I mean, what people forget is that everybody thought, when we first started doing that, everybody thought that methodology was suicidal.
Did they really?
Everybody thought, no, the way you do it is you do the Avengers first, introduce these characters in a compelling, wonderful team scenario, and then you spin them out into their own smaller movies. That was the conventional thinking at the time. That's the way you do it. You break the franchises out after that. But that's so now it looks like, oh, well, that's the way you do. Of course you do the plan that way. So, and again, and the testimonial to Joss is that now that you have these individual movies that have all had a really, some really significant success, and you've got these stars that are all in the room, and you've got to write for each one of these stars and each one of these characters, that each one have a fan base. That's tough, man. That is really, really tough. I mean, that is, and I'm not talking about personalities and stuff. I'm just talking about just all the pieces and the idea of herding cats and, that is not an easy thing to do when you really think about just
herding, folks. HERDING. There are a bunch of people out there going, he's herding cats now.
Just trying to imagine writing that screenplay and putting those chess pieces together and then making it something that people go, wow, that's fun. And
that's what I'm saying. The table was set and they could have shit on the table, but they didn't, or just give us steakums, which actually I would have liked, but they went above and beyond. Like those are 2 examples, the Avengers and Captain America Winter Soldier, where yes, the table's been set, but fuck, did they lay out a goddamn delightful meal. Are you allowed in your position to play favorites? Do you have like a descending order or a top 3 of Marvel movies for you? Or is it like, hey man, fucking, you're not allowed to say, because it's like having kids and you love all your kids.
No, I've publicly said in the past that actually, one of, like, even before Captain America 2, which is to me, my favorite Marvel movie right now. My favorite Marvel movie was Captain America 1. And
really?
Yeah. But let me say the reason is because it's strictly nostalgic to me, because something about Captain America 1, the opening, the music, the way that Joe Johnston, just the whole thing about it reminded me of all the great movies of my of not necessarily my childhood, but my very sort of, influential period of watching movies. It reminded me of Raiders. It reminded me of Donner, Superman. It reminded me, it had all those touchstones for me. So that's why I
from a guy who touched a lot of those movies.
Right. So I really, so when I watch that movie, I just get that sort of like warm, this is comfortable. I'm like in a comfortable woolly sheet,
right.
And a blanket. And I'm really digging it that way. So I've always liked Captain America 2 from that point of view, and when he puts the plane down, he's talking to Peggy.
Yes, it's emotional.
It's it's corny, and I love it. And I'm just shoving the popcorn in my mouth, and I'm like, oh my God, I'm bowling.
And that line, dude, where he's like, I just don't like bullies.
Yeah. Oh, that whole thing, that whole conversation with Erskine and where he pours the schnapps and then he says, cheers. Oh, no, not for you. You can't drink. That whole thing. There's all those wonderful little bits of business that, and Skinny Steve, just.
Which they bring back in Captain America 2. There's a flashback sequence. You get to see Skinny Steve again.
A little bit of Skinny Steve goes a long way, man. So I've always said the Cap 2 was my favorite. But again, that's my caveat. It's just that it just, it's the flashback to me, the skinny me actually. Well,
they took fucking Skinny you.
Yeah.
And they put you in that Marvel machine. They pumped you full of fucking super soldier serum, and look what you've been able to accomplish, man. It's fucking crazy, and continue to do.
If this is what super soldier serum does, I don't recommend it.
Fuck you. You did great, man. So. Once again, folks, this was a cat that could have drew Batman, but instead, well, look what he did. Just goes to show you fell upwards in the comic book business and every other business in this life. If you're smart, it takes a smart cat, man. Come back when you're back. I'm trying to get, he's coming back more frequently now because he keeps working on, stuff out here. And I asked him, Joe, I was like, hey man, you gonna move out here? No, he's staying East Coast, but he'll be flying back and forth more frequently. So don't be surprised when he keeps popping up in the Fat Cave.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you what, what we should do is, Shield now. We have a new episode. What's today? Today's Monday, right? We have a new episode coming out tomorrow.
Really? The season's not over yet?
Season's not over yet. No.
So what? This fucking show's still going after S.H.I.E.L.D. has collapsed in the movie? So is it still tied into the movie events?
Yeah. Now you got.
I wonder did you notice if the ratings have gone up? Like I would imagine with Captain America
ratings are being
big, I would imagine that episode that week is like, holy shit, it's tying in.
Ratings are doing well. We have we've got that loyal following, man, and it's just and I think the show shocked the hell out of everybody. Right after Cap, and there's still more to come. And I don't know how much of it. I don't know when you actually.
This will go up this week.
This will go up this week. Okay, so then people will probably seen this week's episode just came out, but you should catch up on the show. At least you should catch up on the episodes right after Captain America, which will be a few, and then we should just talk after the season's over, so people can we can talk a little bit about the S.H.I.E.L.D. show and where it's going to go from there.
What I love too about the movie about Captain America: Winter Soldier was Hydra turned into the Empire just like that. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? Because Hydra was given lots of play in Captain America, the first Avenger. And then in Avengers, there was a reference to this Hydra technology. Yeah. But what was Hydra technology doing here? There's always been little references and stuff. But when you get here, they're turned into a major player. And as much as we're so badass, we were you, and you don't even fucking know it. That's Hydra, my friend. Cut off one head, two will. What is it? Cut off one head, and two will replace it. Yeah.
Well, I always tell people, I mean, Hydra's just a metaphor for Marvel, man. We've been doing this for a long time. It's just, instead of whispering "Hail Hydra," we just whisper to the "Make my Marvel."
Oh my God.
So little by little,
it's been me hard.
Yeah.
Just say "Make my Marvel."
Little by little, it's been world domination, man. We've been taking over.
They continue to do it and do it well, man. You guys are kicking ass over there.
Thank you, sir.
It's doing the Lord's work on every front. Love that it's all being kind of kept together and overseen. Love the idea of the Marvel Creative Committee and shit like
Appreciate
that.
it.
Just keep making I hate leaving the house ever anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Hence the joy of podcasting. I don't have to fucking leave. I was so fucking enthralled and happy to leave my house to see what I saw. And I saw it at the fucking dome, at the Cinerama Dome.
Oh, did you?
Oh, so it's writ large. I don't go 3D. I went, digital, just 2D. But I was so delighted.
I can't see in 3D.
I can, but I'm just like, why bother?
No,
It always darkens it. It doesn't work for you?
I don't have stereo vision.
Really?
No.
Like in real life?
In real life, I don't.
So what happens if you put the glasses on? You're like, why is one side blue and one side red?
Well, they're polarized now, so it doesn't matter. I just can't see in 3D, which always freaks people out with like, how can you draw if you don't? I'm like, I had.
How do you make something look three dimensional if you can't see in three dimensions?
I just adjusted. I mean, I didn't even know I didn't have stereo vision. I mean, I had an operation as a little kid because I had a lazy eye, but I never trained both. Like when you look at binoculars and you see a figure 8.
Yeah.
I could look at it one eye or I could switch both eyes, but I can't put them together. So I have no stereo vision.
So
3D is lost on me completely.
But what about anything else? Like driving in traffic? That don't fucking matter.
Dude, I play baseball.
How weird is that?
I know. I've just adjusted.
Let me tell you something. You ain't missing anything. I mean, even in the 21st century, it's still a gimmick and it still sucks. It's still, as a filmmaker, I sit there and go like, once I put these glasses on, it is literally darkening the movie by, I'd say 25%.
Yeah, no, that's the only drag to it. So when I go to if I take my daughter to see a movie, she wants to see it in 3D, right? So,
like, ooh, so Daddy's Kryptonite.
So we go to these great, animated movies and I'm like, oh man, it's dark.
Yeah, that's what I can't stand about it.
Yeah.
But regardless, man, even listen to that. Fucking, that makes everything you've done even that much more impressive.
Oh, it's not that big a deal.
But it's a cool fucking thing that you guys are doing over there. We look forward to hearing more about it, man. It's easy to fucking sneak in the fat cave and talk about fucking Marvel because you guys are kicking ass and it's exciting. It's fun as a comic book fan. I'm telling you, there's so many moments in that movie.
You're definitely going to want to talk about the end of the Shield season, and when we click off here, I'll tell you why, and then we'll be back.
And we'll be back. All right, there it is, folks. Thank good old Joe Quesada for coming in here and dropping fucking Cap knowledge, Marvel knowledge, telling us some shit, not telling us more.
And
if
I haven't said it, I didn't say it the last time, but I do want to thank, I know there's a lot of Batman fans here too, but, I want to thank all the fans who support, not just the Marvel stuff, but all the stuff that I've done for, all the years. And it's, I'm out there sometimes and, raising hell and saying stupid things and stuff like that, but it's all out of love of comics and love of Marvel, DC and Image and Dark Horse and everybody out there. It's the medium, right?
It's Harvey Weinstein, dude. Put on a show behind the show.
Yeah.
Like you were smart to do it. Look what it's done for A, comics, B, Marvel, and C, your career. You were very smart to do what you did.
Thank you.
Where can they follow you on Twitter?
Joe Quesada.
At Joe Quesada, man, if you want to go give them some love and shit like that and fucking tell them to come back. Next time you come back, we'll do top 5 favorite comic books from anywhere. Doesn't have to just be this guy. Across the medium, your big 5. There it is, folks. Join us next week here in the Fat Cave. Same fat time, same fat channel, smodcast.com.